Hey everyone, how are you? Happy Sunday afternoon to all of you. I swear, if you don't hit the like and subscribe, my little dog gets it today. Nah, I would never. My little Colby. Anyway, how you doing, everybody? I hope you're doing well. Neil Diamond, the brilliance of Neil Diamond. I have to tell you, when I started playing drums, I was about 9, and the first song that I ever played drums to was Cracklin' Rosie because that was on the radio at that time, and I loved it. And then I remember about 5 years later or 6 years later, Beautiful Noise, that album came out around 76. And I started running through the whole album. It wasn't that I was such a Neil Diamond fan, honestly, at that time. It was just that it's what I learned. You know, hey, Ira, my man. Yeah, he was great. And I saw him live in concert. I saw him probably around 1993 at the Nassau Coliseum because I remember the stage was in the middle. Picture a basketball court. Well, it wasn't on either side. It was right in the middle, a square. And it was a good concert. He was terrific. And, he's just great. He's from Brooklyn, so I love him for that. He was born in January, at the end of January, 41. So he's, going to be 85. And he's an American singer-songwriter, charismatic, prolific songwriter, radio friendly. Solitary Man in '66, Sweet Caroline, Song Sung Blue was a great song. He began writing pop songs for other musicians and then launched a solo recording career, and that went over 5 decades. Now, he was diagnosed about 7 years ago with Parkinson's disease. He retired, but he continues to record, but he doesn't go on stage anymore. Now, from Brooklyn to the Brill Building, uh, he had said that songwriting gives him the greatest joy, the greatest sense of accomplishment, the sense that his life has some purpose. It's what I am. He said that in 1976. Now, I just wrote a song with my friend Fred. We've been going back and forth here on the iPhone. I gave him lyrics, he put music, and I'm writing the middle for it. And so the process really invigorates you. So today I feel different because I'm in that process. With Diamond's parents, Akiba and Rose Rappaport Diamond, they owned a dry goods store, and they moved to Brooklyn when he was young, and they lived in Wyoming. The father was in the military originally, but he mainly grew up in Brooklyn, Neil. At 16, he started becoming very immersed in music. He got a guitar as a gift, his first guitar, his birthday gift. Started writing, learning the instrument, and he did a performance with Pete Seeger at a summer camp in upstate New York, where Neil Diamond was a camper. That summer camp is Surprise Lake because I was a counselor there in 1987. Yep. And I saw Pete Seeger. He used to give a free concert every year in mid-July. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It might have been July 4th or around that weekend. And so Neil Diamond went to that place. Surprise Lake was up at Fishkill, and I remember the barracks kind of were like a half a mile from the mess hall where you'd have your meals. So, I was running around continually as a group leader for young guys, and that's where Neil Diamond went. So, Surprise Lake Day Camp. I'm very familiar with it, and I wasn't writing at that point because I was with my girlfriend. Dan was gone at that point, and she worked up there, wanted me to go up there, and that's why I did it. And I brought my acoustic guitar there, actually. the campfires. Someone else played the guitar as well, and we played, but didn't write. And now I wonder why I didn't, because what a conducive place for writing. But he graduated from high school. He went to NYU, my alma mater, with the intention of entering medical school. He left college during his final year to take a job as a staff songwriter for the Sunbeam Music Company. He only worked there a bit, and he became a stable of songwriters and worked out of New York City's The Brill Building, with Neil Sedaka, Carole King, all those great writers at that time worked out of. Now, songwriting was his life. In '65, he signed a contract with Bang Records, and The Feel of Neil came out a year later, his first album, debut album. Shortly after that, he wrote the song I'm a Believer in '66 for the Monkees, recorded by the Monkees and made famous by the Monkees. In '67, he signed a new contract with Uni Records, and he recorded Brother Loves Salvation, Traveling Salvation Show in '69, great song. Cracklin' Rosie in '70, that's where I learned about him. And Cracklin' Rosie is about a bottle of wine. You're a store-bought woman. He uses her, a bottle of wine, as a girl. Gets away from his problems and doesn't have to worry about anything. Now, in '70, he reached number one on the charts with his first number one, I Am, I Said, great record, '71. And the last of which earned him a Grammy nomination, award nomination. Now, so one of the best-selling songs and known songs of that era is Sweet Caroline. You know, so everyone does it. It's like the Hey Jude of that type of music. And it was inspired by a photograph of Caroline Kennedy when she was 9 years of age, the daughter of President John and First Lady Jacqueline. And in 2007, Diamond performed that song for her 50th birthday and revealed to her for the first time to anyone that that song was written about her. So that was interesting. And he recalled the photograph of her with her pony. And it was such an innocent, wonderful time. And he thought there was a song in there, and there was, and it was a great song. So after leaving uni, he went to Columbia Records, graduating up, and recorded the soundtrack for the film Jonathan Livingston Seagull in 1972 or 3, that was. That earned him a Grammy. And then he went on to release a bunch of successful albums in the 70s, Serenade in '74, Beautiful Noise, '76, I think that was. Love at the Greek, '77 live, it was great. You Don't Bring Me Flowers, chart topping with Barbra Streisand, and September Morn, 1979. So he was really prolific in the 70s. Now I liked him because of the drums and the whole bit. In 1980, I happened to go on a date. Rom-coms weren't big in 1980. Well, I guess 9 to 5 wasn't. He was the idiot. Whoever was in that, I forget who was in that. But the motion picture, The Jazz Singer, was Dabney Coleman. And the other one, kind of a rom-com, but not. It's a remake of the 27 Al Jolson film, The Jazz Singer. And he wrote and performed the soundtrack. Now, Diamond's acting was destroyed by critics. I thought he was fine. He's not an actor. He's a singer. What do you want him to do? He's playing a singer. What's he supposed to do? Play it like Hamlet? Right? The E string is flat. What's he supposed to do? But the movie had a top 10 hit, America, about the immigrant experience. That should be the Star Spangled Banner now. So that's the way that went. And I loved the movie. Now I really got into him at that point. Although, like I said, I was familiar with his work. So he came out with Hot Light in '82, Live in America in '94, In My Lifetime '96, the Neil Diamond Collection '99. Uh, so after having written for other musicians early in his career, uh, he saw many of his iconic selections being covered by new generations of artists. Reggae, UB40, Red Red Wine, Chris Isaac did Solitary Man, alternate rockers, Urge, Overkill, Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon, featured on the soundtrack, Pulp Fiction, 94. So it was really the Neil Diamond show, even though he wasn't as commercially successful as he was in the 70s. Now other artists realized who he was by the 90s. In the early 21st century, he released other albums, The Essential Neil Diamond, 2001, Stages, 2003, 12 songs, and Rick Rubin produced that very good album, 2005. Now, Home Before Dark of 2008 was another collaboration with Rubin, who was real strong, Rick Rubin. And Melody Road in 2014 made a cameo appearance as himself in Saving Silverman in 2001. Movie in 18, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's. He announced he was retiring from touring. Now, in the 25 film Song Sung Blue, which stars Hugh Jackman and Kate Hudson as members of a Neil Diamond tribute band, it's named for the hit of 1972, Song Sung Blue. So he was honored twice by the Songwriters Hall of Fame, induction in 84. Later in 2000, he presented with the Sammy Cahn Lifetime Achievement Award, which is a pretty heavy award. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 11. He received the Kennedy Honor in 11 as well, probably piggybacking off that. Grammy Award for Lifetime Achievement in 18, obviously because of the Parkinson's, they felt we better give it to him while he can enjoy it. I'm sure, not sure, but I think that's it. U.S. Library of Congress added Sweet Caroline to the National Recording Registry, a list of audio recordings that demand cultural, historical, and aesthetically significant songs. In movies, you have, I believe, Back to the Future's in that, Groundhog Day for the movie bit in that registry. So, what did he do? Rock and roll style of popular music. Well, it originated in the 50s because that's when he was growing up. It evolved in the 60s. And even though you don't express him, if you're talking about him as a rock star, a modern rock crooner, maybe. Okay, now rock is pretty much, to me, was always a merger of country music and rhythm and blues. Look, there was no template. When the Beatles came out, after the Beatles, people knew how to be a star. Bands knew what, it was like you're matriculated. You knew you had to take algebra, earth science. Your first, what did you take? You take seventh grade. What do you take? You take biology, I believe, in seventh grade. You take algebra in seventh grade. There's English 101. You take a matriculated schedule. You pretty much knew. Now picture going to school for the first time. There were never any teachers and no one ever knew what to teach. Well, that's what the Beatles did when they became rock stars. No one ever had done it. Now there was a template. You knew what you had to do. You went from one gig to a bigger gig to a bigger producer. Then you don't have to beg for a microphone because you're making money for the recording studio. So pretty much they'll let you have what you want because they're making a lot of money on you. Well, that's the way it was. Neil Diamond came into the consciousness, I think, because the seeds of music had been placed for decades, flowered in the mid-50s, where he was with Sedaka and all those people, maybe not friendly, but was definitely bouncing off the radio. You had black culture, very influential. The Dominoes, the Spaniels began combining gospel music at that time. He liked that. Alan Freed of Cleveland, Dewey Phillips of Memphis was doing all those songs on the radio, really getting into your ear, like an earworm where kids were humming and in school. Did you hear this one? And in 54, of course, this handsome white singer Elvis comes along who sounded like a black guy and danced like a black guy. And guess what? You merged the two, and what did you have? Rock and roll. So Presley incorporated everything from hillbilly to blues, Wales, pop, crooner ballads. And I think Neil Diamond took a bit of all of that. You could hear Fats Domino in Neil Diamond, Chuck Berry, Bo Diddley. Diamond's a very accomplished acoustic guitar player, too. He's very good. The 55 movie Blackboard Jungle, Rock Around the Clock. You could hear all that because that is when he was a teenager. That was when Neil Diamond was sinking his teeth into music as a teen, right? in at 16. So that was the period where he was watching all this and soaking it up, you know. Now the music industry's response to rock and roll, clean cut artists, Pat Boone did versions of Little Richard songs, non-threatening artists came out, Fabian, Frankie Avalon. They were the Perry Comos and Bing Crosbys of the new generation. You know, the Bing Crosby and Perry Como, your back then, not mine, I'm a little too young, was Fabian and Frankie Avalon. And they converted gospel music. And then you had Phil Spector come out and the recording studio with the advent of Dolby sound and all that and tracking stuff. You were able to do a lot. And I think Neil Diamond incorporated a little of everything. Folk literature. He was a brilliant writer. There's a song he did, Brooklyn Roads, that every time I hear it, you know what? I'm going to lose I want someone to send me $1 right now because I'm going to lose my advertising for doing this. Hey, James. Yes, Mitch. Someone send me $1 because I'm going to lose my standing here because I'm putting this song on for you. I hope they don't take it down. This song resonates with me so wonderfully.
If I close my eyes, I can almost hear my mother calling, Neil, go find your brother. That is home and it's time for supper. Hurry on. And I see two boys racing up two flights of staircase, squirming into Papa's embrace. And there's whiskers warm on their face. Where's it gone? Oh, where's it gone?
Most people live in flats, tenements at that time, running upstairs together.
2 floors above the butcher. First door on the right. And life filled to the brim as I stood by my window and looked out on those Brooklyn roads.
And that's the way that was. Brooklyn was that way. And he was probably, listen, his parents owned a store. And his father was a former military man. So they had to have some money. But that's how people lived back then. They were like tenements. Not with the rats, but tenements. But there's one thing that I disagree with. I truly do. I just think he got panned for the jazz singer. I don't understand how his performance, he played Jess Robin, dreamed of a career in popular music. His father was a cantor, Rabinovich. Laurence Olivier, the great Laurence Olivier, he forbidden him to do it. He insisted that he lives a traditional Jewish life, inherit the position at the synagogue, and with the help of his friend and a professional musician, Bubba, Jess gets a chance to go to LA and have famous singer Keith Lennox record one of his songs. He defied his father, his wife, and he leaves New York to pursue his dreams. I remember I told you I went out that was around Christmas time. That movie must have come out. Either Christmas week or a week before or around there, because I remember I was buying Christmas gifts earlier that day. So, look, it's a musical drama. There weren't many of them out there back then. You remembered 15 years before, Roustabout by Elvis. We got spoiled on the Elvis. Few years before the jazz singing, you had Tommy, the rock opera came out and all that. Pinball Wizard, Sergeant Pepper, covering all that. But Richard Fleischer had Jerry Leder produce this. Now, it was Neil Diamond's acting debut. Lucy Arnaz was terrific in it, and Laurence Olivier, the great Laurence Olivier, gave it weight. Okay, it tells the story, and I think it tells the story of the 25 play pretty well. Anytime you're an adaptation for a film, it's going to be close, but it's going to be a little more elaborate because you're not dealing with fixed sets on a stage. Now, it was supposed to be developed for Neil Diamond. In the late 70s, his popularity revived after about a 5 or 6 year hiatus. And it was supposed to be produced by Paramount AFD with Sidney Furie directing. Deborah Raffin was supposed to be the opposite, Diamond. There were delays, constant delays, script rewrites, and Raffin left. So the jazz singer was released. It was a disappointment. It made a lot of money. It doubled the $12 million budget, maybe 13, 12, whatever it was. But critics said that Diamond and Olivier, I remember them saying Olivier wasn't any good in it. They loved Lucy Arnaz, probably because the bar is here, where for Laurence Olivier, it's here. Laurence Olivier is one of the greatest actors of that generation, or generation before at that time. So Lucy Arnaz, no one expected anything from her. Now, Lucy Arnaz had been on Broadway with They're Playing Our Song with Alan Klein around that time. I remember because I went to see it with my sister. My sister loved it. That's They're Playing Our Song. Check that. It's pretty good soundtrack. Check it out. So she probably was seen in that. But the soundtrack became multi-platinum. And it was his most successful album up until that point. And one of the most successful film soundtracks of history. So being a fifth generation Jewish cantor, dealing with a father who was very religious was hard for him. Yossel is married to his childhood friend Rivka, and they settle down to live a life of faith. But he starts writing songs for a black singing group on the side. A member of the quartet was arrested, and Yossel covers for him by wearing blackface at one of the gigs. And it's a success, and he loves it. But one of the patrons noticed that his hands are white and speaks out. A whole big fight. The band's arrested. His father comes, Olivier, to bail him out. But he finds there's no Yossel Rabinovich there, but a Jess Robin, who is the stage name. And his father tells him, your singing voice is to be used for God's purposes, not your own. I'm not going to give up the movie, but you have to see. It's excellent. It's excellent. I will tell you that at a rehearsal the day before Yom Kippur, toward the end of the movie, Jess learns that his father's in the hospital with high blood pressure and won't be able to sing the Kol Nidre at a synagogue. Jesse's reluctant to go because the father said, you're dead to me. Hadn't spoken to him. Molly insists that he goes, a woman that he had met, or else he'll feel guilty for a lifetime. He agreed to sing. He tries to make amends with his father, who won't speak to him until he finds out he has a grandson. I won't tell you what happens. They both get murdered now. So it was terrific. Now, originally, the development, they wanted to make Neil Diamond a star again. Jerry Leder saw Diamond on a 1976 TV special. He believed that Diamond could have the same kind of crossover appeal as Elvis and Barbra Streisand, who were singers and became movie stars. And Streisand had done A Star Is Born, a remake which was loved. And it was such a success, they figured the Jazz Singer would remake, right? But there was a problem. This was about 3 years in production. Originally, United Artists and Warner Brothers both said they owned it. In '78, the studio dropped the remake. They said it was too Jewish, executives. That's interesting because Hollywood's all Jewish. Shows you how phony it is. But like I always say, record producers will produce stuff and put it on the radio that they would never listen to in their house. They're trying to make money. You know, if a bag of shit sold because Kardashian said it would sell, someone would make it and sell it. They wouldn't like it, but it's money. So problems started throughout this whole movie. Diamond's making his acting debut. He was really struggling at this point. He used Fury, one of the directors, used improvisation, which had worked with Diana Ross when she did Lady Sings the Blues. But it wasn't working for Diamond. He was more structured. And they didn't like the multiple cameras that Fury was using. So really, what I think it was like you asking me to go perform heart surgery. I think Neil Diamond was a regular guy who was scared to death of being an actor. That's what I think. I think he was a regular guy when he was on stage. In fact, he became a singer because he was writing for people, and he said, let me show you how you should do it. And they said, why don't you do it? He never wanted to be a singer. So when Raffin left the project, who was a pretty established actress, she was paid $225,000 to leave, and Inez replaced her. They shifted to New York because Inez was doing their Playing Our Song, the Broadway play I told you about. She couldn't come to California, so they had to film in New York. So it was just a shit show to get done. Now, investor Lou Grade, who is Lou Gradowski, he's the guy that sued John Lennon, Lou Grade. They couldn't recoup the prints and advertising costs, they said. But they pre-sold it to the American television network for $4 million. So the losses were minimalized. Right away, they sold it to TV. It was probably a Monday night special or whatever. And the soundtrack grossed much more than the film, so they got their money back. But I don't see how they thought Neil Diamond was so terrible in it. I think the problem was I actually went to look at prints of the Al Jolson one. This is what I think. I think because this wasn't 1925, I think it had to be more elaborate, more campy, as they say. I think a Laurence Olivier character, when you remember him for his roles, he had to be very boisterous, and that wasn't him. I think Neil Diamond had to be someone that he doesn't agree with. He didn't even want to be a singer. You think he wanted to be an actor? You get the same feeling of them saying, just act it, instead of, just sing it. It took them a while to get the singing thing. This is a one shot, and many more people are watching you. This isn't 15,000 people in an arena. You got millions watching this movie. He was understandably nervous, you know. I think he performed. Now, I watched it last night to do this again. Now, Lucy Inez was coming from Broadway. When you do, I did off Broadway. There are 3 different things you have to do. It's a 3-sided room. When you do a TV show, you have 3 walls. You can't look at the crowd. So if I'm talking to there's a wall behind me, wall here, crowd, or cameras. I can't be talking to you and glance over there. There's nothing there. There's no wall there. So I have to talk to you. I can't be diverted by the crowd. And that's what happens. And I think that she was used to the one-on-one. When you do a show on Broadway, you have a one-on-one with the character you're playing. You have a trust with the opposite performer, and then a trust with the audience. You can't show the audience trust because you can't look at the audience. They're not supposed to be there. So you have to be convincing enough where the audience, you're not talking to them, but they hear you and they trust you. That's what I think happened here. I think she was used to being on the three-wall circuit. She gained your trust as a viewer. He wasn't used to it. He's used to playing to you in front of a crowd. That's what he does. And he has to camp it up a bit. And that's what he did. Now, I think he performs his ballads well enough. I think the script made him do a lot of foolish things. You know, a bar mitzvah melody into a pop romance. You know, the script, he impersonated a washed out Willie Nelson. A lost weekend, binging, drinking. Then he had to go from America to My Country 'Tis of Thee. You know, the writing was good for the movie, but not good necessarily for him. You got to remember that in 25 also, the jazz singer, that spoke to a generation of immigrants who wanted to break away from their traditional parents. By 1980, this movie, big difference, right? You had Sonny Walkman. So 55 years later, 65 years later, people were rediscovering their traditions from 1925 to 1980. They don't accept Jess's career move as easily as we would now, right? A religious tradition has much more value than a plastic Hollywood album. And generally speaking, if you come from generations of that, you're not going to go to Hollywood. So I think people weren't quite sold. At the movie's end, when we see the old cantor, Olivier, applaud his son in concert, we feel like saying, don't you have anything better to do than go see Neil Diamond cantor? You know, that's the kind of thing. All of a sudden, you'd approve it. And no, you wouldn't approve it. You'd deal with it, but you wouldn't be applauding and smiling. Yeah, or maybe privately, but not in front of your son. So he also looks, I noticed he didn't make eye contact with a lot of people in this movie. If you go watch the movie, his personal relationships aren't believable. It looks like he's just half listening to you while looking to run away from you. Even when he's talking to his wife, his father. It's hard to. 1980, you're starting the decade of excess. Take it from me. Played in a band, bouncer in a club, cocaine, excess. A story that was volatile in 1925 by 1980 wasn't volatile. I think people took it more as a promotion vehicle, a big music video that lasted 2 hours for Neil Diamond's work. That's what I think people thought of it as. Like an MTV, before MTV came out, well, it's a 2-hour video, not a 3-minute song. And the songs are very much alike. And Diamond's expressions for every word is said, he makes the same expression on camera. You know, gloomy to gloomy. Never really happy. And I can't imagine Neil Diamond loved this movie. Because he's not an actor. The role's a little unsympathetic for him. And he only comes alive when he's doing his own songs. You see Neil Diamond when he's performing, and then back to 20 minutes of doom and gloom. Then back on stage, he's Neil Diamond again. He's never really just, he's Neil. We never buy it. We know Neil Diamond's Jewish. So, okay. We see him with the yarmulke. Okay, so he's not on stage. He's at home. But that's the way it is. It was dreary, I think. I liked it, but trying to be objective here, it's a little clownish. It's a little clownish. Diamond sounds terrific. He's in great form there. You know, what was he, 40 years old? And by then you had a Dolby sound and all that. So it sounded good in the movie theater too. And Love on the Rocks is a key single that climbed the top 40 before the movie came out. So people heard that, oh, the movie must be great. Listen to the song. People do that too, much like Saturday Night Fever. But the story is very disposable. I think Lucia Mez was good in that. It's a 2-hour advertisement for his soundtrack. He's very brooding, but that's what he was supposed to be. A very, very disenchanted fellow who is giving up tradition, his father, and pretty much he's giving up his father to go be a star. So is that a good Jew, so to speak? No, it's not. And he turned his father to clap and laugh at the end, which means his father wasn't a good Jew. Think about it. So you went off and that's how I feel. But I think that I think it was a good watch. It's antiquated. It didn't age well, obviously. You know, singing America, you'd have the Somalian flag up there. You know, you couldn't do it now. But back then, I had to, you know, the devil made me do it. But I think that this was a worthwhile film to watch if you're a Neil Diamond fan. I think his performance was stiff, but it was his first performance. When he performed his songs, it was like you were watching him in concert. That was the problem. Most of the movie, you're watching Neil Diamond try to be someone else. When Neil Diamond played himself while he was singing, he was Neil Diamond. You loved him. But then he went back to playing someone, and he's not an actor. Neil Diamond's an upbeat guy, and you see him playing very broody and miserable. You don't buy it. But I think that it was enjoyable. It was. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm getting into my Jewish mode here, the token goy. I am going to do a background and a deep dive into the movie Yentl. Barbara Streisand plays a boy. She did a good job on that, but she's a good actress. Mandy Patinkin was in that. He was very good in that. I'm going to start reviewing movies with soundtracks, actors in movies. We're going to do some Elvis. The Elvis movies were campy, but they were made for one thing. For the teenagers to go see him. Elvis wasn't a particularly good actor, but you knew what you were watching. When I'm watching Roustabout or Viva Las Vegas, I know what I'm watching. When you're watching a serious subject matter with a cantor and a son excommunicating from his Jewish faith after 5 generations, it's a little bit heavier than Elvis singing to Anne Margaret and falling in a swimming pool. But we're going to cover that anyway because I think that's fun and it has its place. And I think Elvis obviously was a very, very important figure in music history. And I think Elvis was good at being Elvis. That's the difference. Elvis was very good at being Elvis. Neil Diamond was good at being Neil Diamond with a guitar in his hand. There was a difference. I would have liked to see Elvis, who actually was a pretty good actor, do a movie like that. Oh, we'll take the Jewish out of Elvis. You wouldn't buy it. But do a movie like that with faith, and maybe his father was a minister or whatever. That would have been interesting because Elvis was a good actor. Elvis also, you got to remember, was in his early 20s when he was acting, late teens, early 20s. Neil Diamond was a 40-year-old now, and the world had changed. But I think that Neil Diamond is the brilliance of his career, that he's so understated, but yet if you're having a conversation about the 5 greatest artists, and then someone says, how about Neil Diamond? Oh, yeah, Neil Diamond. I can't believe I forgot him. That would be your answer. Much more relevant than Barry Manilow, but I think Barry Manilow always got the credit. But I believe Neil Diamond has doubled Barry Manilow's album sales. Hold on for a second. Okay, Neil Diamond sold about 130 million records. Barry Manilow about 80. Barry Manilow is a wonderful songwriter, wonderful pianist, composer. Neil Diamond, outstanding guitarist, great lyricist. Neil Diamond could write a novel about something that he's holding. H2O instead of Cracklin' Rosie. Barry Manilow writes like Paul McCartney. Invents characters. Doesn't really sing about himself. Neil Diamond, self-confessional. Cracklin' Rosie, probably at one time he did have a bottle of wine and the girl broke up with him probably. He wrote about seeing that the Kennedy's kid's birthday, right? A lot of personality in Neil Diamond. I think Barry Manilow painted a word picture for you. And both have their definite foothold in music. And I think that when you look at the body of work, I think it's comparable. I think that it's apples to oranges because of the pianist. Neil Diamond, playing an acoustic guitar is a lot different. When you have to transpose, you write differently on the piano. The piano, to me, everything is right in front of you. Every note that's ever been written in the world. That's not the case with the guitar. 6 octaves, whatever, 72 keys, whatever it is. You have the whole world's music in front of you. That's not the case. So it's a little different. But both were around at the same time. I think it depended on what you liked. Does Neil Diamond have anything really to do with the show tune singing? Critical praise has nothing to do with anything because Britney Spears was a top hit in '96. Come on. It's pop standards. The Neil's generation. People were looking, and they're the same age pretty much. People that like Neil Diamond music liked Sedaka. People that like Barry Manilow liked Peter Allen. That's the best way I could say it for you. I think the reason why people always looked at them and maybe compared them is they're both Jewish and they're both from Brooklyn. You know, you don't hear who's better, Kenny Rogers, or it's because they're both Jewish. That's why. Similar upbringing. But they're nothing alike. Manilow's very sugary sweet, and you have guitar-driven folk rock with Neil Diamond. They both had big ballads around the same time, and it never really hurt either one of them being compared. You know, it's like comparing probably, I don't know what the best comparison would be. Michael Jackson to Prince, because they're both black and had hits in the 80s. They're both Jewish from Brooklyn. Same thing. Or Elvis to Cliff Richards, because they shared an era. They didn't share anything else. They were in the same era. Many people get on Barry Manilow for being a punchline. You know, it sounds like music from a shopping mall in hell. Barry Manilow's an acquired taste. He has a lot more energy on stage, obviously. I think a lot of people think Barry Manilow is schmaltzy, although it's good. A lot of it's good. Look, the song Even Now is a wonderful song. Anyone who had an ex-girlfriend that you think about from time to time, Even Now, how could you beat that song? It's exactly what you're thinking, right? I write the songs. It's a good song. But I think one has talent, depth of music, and lyric. One has accomplishment and acclaim. That's what I think. I think that Neil Diamond comes out ahead. But I do think they are all, you know, if you're laying down, unless you want to get drunk for the reason of forgetting that your girlfriend just dumped you, Crackle and Rosie might be a good idea instead of maybe you use vodka. Even Now, when you're laying in bed and you happen to think about that girl that got away, you're going to listen to Even Now. Now, I think that Neil Diamond is more popular than Barry Manilow. I think he's had a few top-selling hits that filled a lot more concert seats, so to speak. You know, in the mid-'70s, I think Manilow was more popular than Neil Diamond because Neil was on a sabbatical, wasn't doing much. Like I said, that's why the Jazz Singer came out. They wanted to reinvent them a bit. Now, you know, Barry Manilow had Mandy, I Write the Songs. He also became famous because he was Bette Midler's music arranger. And she was a hot new act at the time, Bette Midler, in 73, Boogie Woogie Bugle. So, and he was playing in bathhouses with her. He was Bette Midler's pianist originally, Barry Manilow. So he was really in front of everybody a little more. You know, when Barry Manilow hit the scene, he was a versatile artist, and he sang different types of songs. But he got pigeonholed into the ballad singer really early in his career. Neil got put into that category a little later. Now, I think Manilow's very talented, and he's probably more talented musically than Neil Diamond as a piano player, an arranger, and all that. But you got to remember, too, and this is the key, Barry Manilow's songs weren't written by him. He had a lot of collaborators. So I'm guessing after all these years, Barry's probably weak in the lyric department because he would have gone on. Look, for a couple of years, Elton John tried to do it himself, and then Bernie Taupin came back. Why? He's not a songwriter. Neil is very strong in the lyrical department. Now, Neil's collaborations were with people who were talented in writing music. Okay, except for You Don't Bring Me Flowers, because the Bergmans lyricists aren't composers. But I think the lyrics that made Barry famous are ones with all the collaborators. So Barry's talented, and he deserves the success he's earned, and he's still going strong, like 200 years old. But you have to care for his musical style. You know, it's like there are people that are fans of Sinatra and Elvis Presley, and their styles are compared to Neil and Barry. And they sing about love. So they're always going to be compared. When you got two artists always singing about love, they're going to be compared. But I think Neil Diamond's more open-minded. You know, Neil Diamond has the beautiful noise, and Barry Manilow, he lets have the beautiful music, so to speak. You know, if you look at their styles, you look at guys like Bruce Springsteen, John Mellencamp, working class hero type of sound. I write the songs for the whole world. Don't have much common with their voices. Barry's lyrical style is really pre-rock, I think. More higher pitched. You got to remember in the late 70s, early 80s too, guitars have been washed out with strings. So Barry Manilow's stuff sounds much more show tune, piano driven. You're listening to McCartney, and you're listening to, from 1968 to like 73, he went on a piano rampage. Lady Madonna, Martha My Dear, Let It Be, Long and Winding Road, My Love, Maybe I'm Amazed. You get into a pigeonhole, into a piano. I think that Barry Manilow and Barbra Streisand have much more in common than Barry Manilow and Neil Diamond. Probably. And they both like men, so there you go. But I think that Neil Diamond, for me, is the quintessential Brooklyn songwriter. Barry Manilow's really not a songwriter, though, Mitch. He collaborates. He doesn't write most of his lyrics. Neil Diamond is a lyricist. That's why, as much as I love Elton John, Billy Joel has to get a check mark next to he does both, where Elton just writes the music. But Barry Manilow is more of a musician. He's not really a songwriter. Now, I always thought that Bruce Springsteen was very overrated. Very overrated, Bruce Springsteen. Not a bad guitarist. The lyrical poetry of Mandy, yeah. And you look the structure of them, DJ, and it's you were a DJ, so you see what Manilow's doing, going to Beethoven, going to Brahms, you know. Well, Adrian Anderson wrote "Could It Be Magic?" I think. DJ, correct me if I'm wrong. And I'm not a pianist. I can get through, but I believe "Could It Be Magic" is inspired by Chopin's Prelude in C minor, Opus 28, number 20. That's what it's basically derived from. And you can hear. Now, Manilow wrote "Could It Be Magic?" He was living in a studio apartment on 27th Street, Manhattan. He had been playing Chopin on the piano that night, and it came to him. and he built the song as part of the Prelude, Opus 28, number 20. And then you return to the Prelude. And the shape of the song is really like one great crescendo, right? It's, if you want to really look, it's kind of built like Hey Jude. I have a feeling that Barry Manilow had to be inspired a bit by Hey Jude. The crescendo, na 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 na, could it be magic? Oh, na 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 na, kind of like that. I don't know if Manilow was a Beatle fan. Now, I met Barry Manilow. It's a personal story. It was in the 80s. And he was at a club that I was bouncing at. And he was in the stall with a guy. And when I asked him to leave, he was mortified. Leave the bed. Because he wasn't out at that time. And I think he was afraid that I would, and I didn't. And he was very nice. But he was a nice man. He very talented. But a lot of his stuff sounds the same. It's show tunish. If you like Peter Allen, he's a uppercase Peter Allen. And Peter Allen was what, Liza Minnelli's brother, I think. And Liza Minnelli was in show tunes. So, and Liza Minnelli could have done the Lucy Arnaz part in The Jazz Singer. It would have been interesting if she did it. So, the brilliance of Neil Diamond, absolutely incredible. You can't go wrong listening to a Neil Diamond song. Brooklyn Roads. If I wasn't lazy, I would actually put my mic on. Should I do it? Let me see. You know what? Maybe I could sing one for you. My voice is a little beat up right now, but let me see. Let me see. All right. I'm going to put my mic on. How's that? Let's see if I can do it. I got to test the mic out anyway. I just bought new mics. Did a class I'm teaching. So let's see if I can get this going. Check one, two. Check one, two. Check one, two. Check, check, check. Check one, two. Check one, two. Check one, two. Check, check, check. Check, 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 check. Why is this working? 2. Check 1, 2. All right, here we go. Check 1, 2. Check, check, check. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. All right, we're gonna try again. Let's see if I get it for you. Sorry about the voice. All right, here we go. Oh, Crackling Rosie, get on board. We're gonna ride till there ain't no more to go. Taking it slow. Oh, don't you know? Having a time with a poor man's lady, hitching on a twilight train. Ain't nothing here but I care to take along, maybe a song to sing when I want. Don't need to say, please see no man for a happy tune. There you go. My voice is shot today. I'm all hoarse. Let's see if I can do one more for you. Oh, okay. I'll give you one more. Sorry about the voice. I'm all hoarse. Try this one for you. Come a police, arrest this man. He talks in mass, he buzzes like a fridge. He's like a detuned radio. Come a police, arrest this girl. Her hit the head too is making me feel ill, and we have crashed her party. This is what you get. This is what you get. This is what you get when you mess with us. Come a police, I've given all I can. It's not enough. I've given all I can, but we're still on the payroll. This is what you get. This is what you get. This is what you get when you mess with us. And for a minute there, I lost myself. I lost myself. And for a minute there, I lost myself. I lost myself. And for a minute there, I lost myself. I lost myself. And for a minute there, I lost myself. I lost myself. There you go, people. That one was a little better. I got to get this vocal cord fixed. I have a problem with the vocal cord, and I was supposed to have it operated on. I've been kind of skirting it, so my middle range, like that Cracklin' Rosie, stuff like that, is rough. But it was fun anyway. So I hope you have a great rest of your day. Neil Diamond rocks. And I will see you guys soon. Have a good day, everybody.